Everybody, unbelievable. On Christmas Day of all days, while families are together and markets are quiet, some of the worst actors in this space decided to go hunting. Garbage hackers preying on everyday people, draining wallets, wiping out balances, and ruining holidays. I'm going to say this slowly and clearly because I don't want anyone else losing money. Stop what you're doing and pay attention if you use Trust Wallet, especially the Chrome browser extension. It doesn't matter if you hold XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, or anything else. This affects you. What makes this situation so disturbing isn't just the money lost, it's how it happened and how fast. This wasn't some random phishing link or someone clicking an obvious scam email. This was a targeted supply chain attack on a browser extension people trusted, and trust is everything in crypto. The moment that breaks, damage spreads instantly. Personally, I keep most of my assets on my phone and nothing important connected to a Chrome extension. No constant DAP connections, no browser wallet sitting open in the background. Because of that, I'm safe. But even knowing that, I'm not rushing to open anything. I'm taking my time. When something like this breaks, the worst thing you can do is panic and start clicking around. Sadly, a lot of people weren't so lucky. I've been staring at the same screenshots and posts for hours now. People coming back from Christmas dinner, opening their wallets and seeing zero. One guy said it straight. I opened my wallet and my $300,000 was gone. Imagine that gut punch. 1 second you're enjoying time with family. The next, your entire financial position is wiped out. This happened fast. Trust Wallet's Chrome extension version 2.68 was compromised. Malicious code was inserted into the update process itself. That code harvested wallet data and seed phrases. Once attackers have your seed phrase, that's it. There's no undo. There's no password reset. They own the wallet more than you do. Within hours, millions were drained across multiple chains. Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana, not one ecosystem, not one token. This wasn't about price action narratives or market cycles. This was pure security failure, and it shows exactly where the weakest link in crypto still is: browser-based wallets. Now, let's be very clear here because people love to twist this stuff. Trust Wallet as a brand has been considered reputable. It has ties back to Binance, which is why people felt comfortable using it. That's also why the reaction was so intense. People weren't just angry at hackers, they were shocked. Are you kidding me? Was the general sentiment. This can happen here. Yes, it can, and it did. The breach specifically targeted the Chrome extension, not the mobile app, not cold wallets, not hardware wallets. Version 2.6868 was the problem. It was the Trust Wallet acknowledged it publicly, stating they identified a security incident affecting that version only. Their immediate instruction was simple: disable the extension and upgrade to the patched version. But here's where things get tricky. Even if you upgrade, if your seed phrase was already compromised, upgrading doesn't magically fix that. If funds are already gone, they're gone. That's why this situation is so painful. Prevention matters far more than reaction. Multiple on-chain analysts and security firms flagged unusual wallet drains. Reports came in fast. Users saying their balances were disappearing in real time. No transactions they approved, no warning prompts, just gone. That's how you know this wasn't user error. And yes, leadership responded. Public statements were made, assurances were given that funds would be covered, investigations launched. But understand something important. Even they admitted they were still investigating how a malicious version was approved and published. That should tell you everything about how sophisticated this attack was. People immediately started speculating. Insider compromised, build pipeline, stolen developer credentials. We don't know yet. What we do know is this: browser extensions are an enormous attack surface. They live in your browser. They interact with websites. They update automatically. And if that pipeline gets poisoned, the damage scales instantly. This is exactly why I've said for years that convenience is the enemy of security in crypto. Yes, it's convenient to have a wallet always connected to your browser. Yes, it's easy to click, approve, and move fast. But speed cuts both ways. Hackers love speed too. I use MetaMask. I use other wallets, but I don't keep meaningful funds in browser extensions, and I don't leave them connected ever. If I need to interact with something, I connect deliberately, complete the action, and disconnect. That extra friction has saved people millions, literally. Now, if you want to see the public XRP compared with the private XRP price used by banks, weekly insider alerts, how the top 1% position and their strategies, and a millionaire mindset to build generational wealth, become a member of the Crypto Insiders Elite and access everything linked below. Back to what matters today. This isn't about XRP price. It's not about charts. It's not about bullish or bearish narratives. None of that matters if your wallet gets drained. Security comes first, always. You can't profit from a market you're no longer in. More reports kept rolling in. Analysts tracking wallets estimated losses climbing, first 6 million, then more. By the time leadership addressed it again, the number had grown further. They stated user funds were safe going forward and that affected users would be covered, but understand the emotional damage here. Trust once shaken is hard to rebuild. There were reminders circulating across the industry. Security is never done. It's ongoing. It requires paranoia. It requires discipline. And for users, it requires understanding that if you don't control your risk, someone else eventually will. If you're using any browser wallet, not just Trust Wallet, take this seriously. Check what's connected. Check permissions. Revoke anything you don't actively need. If you used a compromised version, assume exposure and act accordingly. Move funds to a fresh wallet with a new seed phrase if advised. And do it calmly, not rushed. This situation also highlights something else people don't like to hear. Exchanges aren't your solution either. Keeping everything on an exchange just shifts risk. It doesn't remove it. The goal is layered security, self-custody done properly, cold storage for long-term holdings, minimal exposure for hot wallets, and zero blind trust. Christmas Day should not be remembered for people losing their life savings, but for some it will be. That's the ugly reality of this space. It's still early, it's still evolving, and mistakes, especially at the infrastructure level, have real consequences. As more updates came in, timelines became clearer. The malicious version was live for a limited window. Control was eventually regained, damage capped. But even now, investigators are piecing together exactly how it happened, which means lessons are still being learned in real time. And that's where we move next. Because understanding how attackers think, how these breaches unfold, and what you must change going forward is critical, especially as we transition into the broader implications for wallet security, user behavior, and what this means for the next phase of crypto adoption. What happens next is where most people get it wrong. After an incident like this, emotions run high, timelines get blurred, and misinformation spreads almost as fast as the hack itself. Some people immediately jump to extremes saying all wallets are unsafe or crypto itself is broken. That's not true. What is true is that this event exposed behavior patterns that hackers count on, and those patterns haven't changed in years. Let's talk about how these attacks actually succeed. Hackers don't need everyone to make a mistake. They only need enough people to rely on convenience. Browser extensions are convenient by design. They're always on. They auto-update. They sit between you and every site you visit. That makes them powerful tools and powerful liabilities. A compromised extension doesn't need you to click anything suspicious. It already has permission. In this case, the malicious code didn't look malicious to users. There was no fake website, no suspicious signature request, no Connect wallet pop-up screaming danger. The extension itself became the threat. That's why even experienced users were caught off guard. They did everything right by normal standards, and it still wasn't enough. This is why security professionals have been warning about supply chain attacks for years. Instead of targeting thousands of individual users one by one, attackers target the infrastructure everyone relies on. One compromised update, one poisoned file, and suddenly thousands of wallets are exposed at once. Scale is the goal. And let's clear something up. This wasn't about XRP specifically, or Bitcoin or Solana. Those assets were affected because wallets holding them were affected. The chain doesn't matter if the key is gone. Seed phrases are universal power. Whoever holds them holds the funds. A lot of people also misunderstand how connections work. When you connect a wallet to a website, you're not just approving a single interaction. You're often granting ongoing permissions. Those permissions live until you revoke them. Over time, wallets accumulate connections users forget about. Old DeFi platforms, NFT mints, test sites, dead projects, each one is a potential doorway. Now layer a compromised extension on top of that. Suddenly attackers don't need to trick you. They just wait. They monitor, they extract, and when they move, it's instant. That's why I keep repeating this. Hot wallets are tools, not vaults. They are meant for active use, not long-term storage. If you treat a browser wallet like a bank account, you're taking unnecessary risk. The industry hasn't done a great job explaining this, and that's part of the problem. Another issue this incident highlighted is how fast rumors spread compared to facts. Within hours, screenshots, partial statements, and unverified claims were everywhere. Some people thought all Trust Wallet products were compromised. Others thought Binance itself was hacked. Neither was accurate, but fear doesn't wait for confirmation. This creates a dangerous environment where users make rushed decisions. They move funds hastily. They import seed phrases into random tools. They download fake recovery software. Ironically, many secondary losses happen after the initial breach when scammers exploit panic. Attackers know this pattern. They watch social media during incidents like this and deploy follow-up scams immediately. fake support accounts, fake reimbursement forms, fake upgrade links, all designed to catch people when they're stressed and desperate. That's why slowing down matters. Taking time matters. Reading official instructions from verified sources matters. Security isn't just technical, it's psychological. Now let's zoom out a bit. This incident didn't happen in a vacuum. We're at a point in crypto where adoption is increasing, capital is returning, and infrastructure is being stress tested at scale. Hacks don't happen because markets are bearish or bullish. They happen because incentives exist. And as more money flows in, incentives grow. The uncomfortable truth is that no wallet provider, no exchange, no protocol is immune forever. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is reducing blast radius, limiting exposure, assuming failure will happen somewhere, and positioning yourself so it doesn't wipe you out. This is why layered security matters. Phone wallets isolated from browsers, hardware wallets for long-term storage, separate wallets for separate purposes. It sounds excessive until the day it saves you. Think about how traditional finance evolved. We don't keep our entire net worth in a checking account. We spread it across savings, investments, insurance, and protections. Crypto requires the same mindset, but with more personal responsibility. One thing that stood out to me in all the reports was how many affected users said the same thing. I didn't think it could happen to me. That sentence shows up after every major hack, and it will keep showing up until users internalize that security isn't about intelligence or experience. It's about habits. Even experienced traders got hit here. Even people who've been in crypto for years. Knowledge doesn't override exposure. Only structure does. Another important detail, reimbursement, even if it happens, doesn't fix everything. It can't restore lost time, stress, or confidence. It can't undo taxable events or missed opportunities, and it certainly doesn't help if you weren't eligible or if assets moved in ways that complicate recovery. Counting on reimbursement is not a strategy. This also raises questions about how wallet updates are distributed, audited, and approved. Expect changes after this. Expect more scrutiny. Expect slower release cycles. All of that is good long-term, but it doesn't help the people who are affected now. For the broader market, incidents like this temporarily shift focus. Price takes a back seat. Narratives pause. Everyone looks at infrastructure. That's healthy, even if it's painful. Weak points need to be exposed before the next wave of users arrives, and they are arriving. Retail always comes later. They come when headlines are bullish, when prices move fast, when apps make onboarding easy. If infrastructure isn't hardened by then, consequences multiply. That's why conversations like this matter. Not to scare people away from crypto, but to raise the standard of how people interact with it. Self-custody is powerful, but power comes with responsibility. As more details continue to emerge about how this specific breach happened, one thing is already clear. Attackers didn't break crypto. They exploited human behavior, convenience, and trust in automated systems. Those are solvable problems, but only if users change alongside technology. And that leads directly into the next layer of this discussion. What practical adjustments actually matter going forward? What security steps are non-negotiable now? And how this event reshapes how serious participants approach wallets, permissions, and exposure as we move ahead. Now we get to the most important part of this entire situation. What actually changes after something like this, and what should change if you don't want to be part of the next headline? Because hacks like this don't end trends. They expose weak behavior, and weak behavior is predictable. The first adjustment people need to make is accepting that trusted does not mean risk-free. Trust Wallet was trusted, so were countless platforms before it. Trust is contextual, not absolute. In crypto, you don't outsource responsibility just because a brand feels established. You still assume something can fail and plan accordingly. This incident reinforces a hard rule. Anything connected to the internet full-time is a hot wallet, and hot wallets are not vaults. They are transaction tools. The moment you store significant value in them, you're increasing exposure. Not because you're careless, but because the environment itself is hostile. Browser wallets are especially vulnerable because they sit at the intersection of multiple risk zones. Browsers interact with websites. Websites load scripts. Extensions update automatically. Each layer introduces another potential failure point. Stack enough of those together, and eventually one breaks. This doesn't mean never use browser wallets. It means use them deliberately. Treat them like cash in your pocket, not your savings account. Only keep what you're willing to risk. Move profits out. Reset often. Compartmentalize. Compartmentalization is something most users still ignore. They use one wallet for everything. DeFi, NFTs, trading, long-term holds. That's convenient, but it's also fragile. One compromised key equals total loss. Separating wallets by function dramatically reduces blast radius. Another overlooked issue is permission hygiene. Over time, wallets accumulate approvals that never get revisited. Contracts you interacted with once months ago still have access. You may not even remember them. That's silent risk. Regularly reviewing and revoking permissions should be standard practice, not an afterthought. Then there's seed phrase discipline. Seed phrases should never touch a browser, cloud storage, screenshots, or messaging apps ever. Many users know this intellectually, but violate it in moments of stress. After incidents like this, fake recovery tools pop up everywhere. They exist to catch exactly that behavior. This is why panic is dangerous. Panic creates shortcuts. Hackers rely on emotional urgency more than technical sophistication. Staying calm is a security measure. Another reality check. Reimbursement, even when promised, is not guaranteed in timing, scope, or eligibility, and it doesn't cover secondary losses. You might get funds back later, but opportunities missed during that time are gone. Taxes triggered are real. Stress is real. Depending on reimbursement is like depending on insurance after your house burns down. Prevention is cheaper. From an industry perspective, this breach will likely accelerate changes. Expect more audits. Expect tighter controls on extension updates. Expect more friction. That friction is good. Smooth, invisible systems feel great until something breaks. Security almost always feels inconvenient until the day it saves you. For users, the biggest mindset shift is this. Security is not a one-time setup. It's an ongoing process. Wallets aren't set and forget. Neither are permissions, devices, or habits. As the ecosystem evolves, so must user behavior. And let's address something uncomfortable. Many people affected were not beginners. They were experienced. They had been through cycles. They had seen scams before. That should tell you something important. Experience alone doesn't protect you. Systems and structure do. Crypto rewards people who think in probabilities, not certainties. You don't assume something won't happen. You assume it might and design around that possibility. That's how professionals think, whether it's in finance, engineering, or security. This is not financial advice. This event also highlights why education matters more than hype. Knowing how wallets work, how approvals work, how updates work, those things don't make headlines, but they prevent losses. Price predictions mean nothing if you can't protect what you already have. As adoption grows, attacks like this won't disappear. They'll evolve. Attackers follow incentives. When more capital flows in, more effort goes into extracting it. That's not pessimism. That's reality. The upside of crypto remains massive, but so does the responsibility. This is why I constantly emphasize risk management over hype. It's not exciting, it's not viral, but it's what keeps you in the game long enough to benefit from the upside. The people who survive multiple cycles aren't just lucky, they're disciplined. If there's one positive outcome from this incident, it's awareness. People are paying attention. They're asking better questions. They're reevaluating habits. That's how the ecosystem matures painfully but progressively. Christmas Day shouldn't have been remembered for drained wallets. But for many, it will be the moment they realized convenience has a cost. Hopefully, it's also the moment they change how they approach security forever, because the market doesn't care how smart you are. Hackers don't care how long you've been here. The only thing that matters is whether your setup can survive a failure somewhere in the chain. And moving forward, that's the standard everyone needs to adopt. Before I go, inside Crypto Insiders Elite, members see public XRP outlook versus a private price target, plus deeper insider alerts and market moves not shared publicly.